Hollywood, for all its glitz and glamour, has long been a breeding ground for indulgence and excess. The pressures of fame, demanding schedules, and relentless scrutiny have often led stars to seek solace in alcohol. Over the years, a number of legendary actors became as famous for their drinking habits as for their on-screen performances. These stars were known not just for casual indulgence, but for their seemingly constant inebriation, often blurring the line between their public personas and personal struggles. Their lives tell stories of talent, self-destruction, and occasional redemption, making them both tragic and unforgettable figures in Hollywood history. Before we start, smash the like and subscribe buttons for more updates. One of the most notorious alcohol-fueled stars of Hollywood's golden age was Richard Burton. The Welsh actor, renowned for his thunderous voice and magnetic screen presence, was equally legendary for his love of alcohol. By his own admission, Burton spent most of his life either drinking or recovering from drinking. His turbulent and highly publicized marriage to Elizabeth Taylor only amplified the chaos, as the two fed off each other's worst habits. Burton once said he could drink 3 bottles of vodka in a day and still show up to set. This level of consumption became part of his reputation. Despite his prodigious talent, directors and co-stars would recount tales of him stumbling onto set, holding a drink in one hand and his lines in the other. Yet, the extraordinary part was that he could still deliver his roles with gravitas, even if he was often drunk during performances. For Burton, alcohol wasn't just a vice, but a companion he could never quite shake. Even as he garnered critical acclaim for films like Cleopatra and Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, his personal life unraveled under the weight of his drinking. Friends would later recall that Burton's brilliance often came at the cost of his sobriety. If Burton's alcoholism was tragic, then Oliver Reed's story reads like a cautionary tale wrapped in dark humor. Reed was one of the most distinctive actors to grace British cinema, known for roles in films like The Devils and Gladiator. Off-screen, however, his reputation as a legendary drinker overshadowed his professional achievements. Reed approached drinking with the same fervor and flamboyance that defined his acting career. It wasn't unusual for him to down entire barrels of beer in one sitting, or challenge anyone nearby to drinking contests. Reed's drunken escapades became Hollywood legend. He once wrestled a group of sailors in a bar just for fun, and on another occasion he allegedly drank 106 pints of beer in 2 days while shooting the Three Musketeers. Reed was unapologetic about his drinking, proudly declaring that he saw no reason to give up the one thing he loved most. His final act, however, was a chilling testament to his lifestyle. While filming Gladiator in Malta, Reed spent his last evening at a pub, drinking heavily and entertaining locals with his antics. By the end of the night, he suffered a fatal heart attack, leaving behind a legacy defined equally by talent and excess. Another star whose relationship with alcohol became an inseparable part of his identity was W.C. Fields. Fields was a comedic genius during Hollywood's early years, known for his acerbic wit, slurred delivery, and devil-may-care attitude. On screen, he often portrayed hard-drinking misanthropes who seemed to stumble through life with a drink in hand. Off-screen, the persona was not far from the truth. Fields loved alcohol, particularly gin, and rarely appeared on set without a flask nearby. He once quipped, "I don't drink water because fish fornicate in it," a line that perfectly encapsulated his relationship with booze. Directors knew Fields couldn't function without his juice, and often turned a blind eye to his on-set drinking as long as he delivered his lines. During the filming of Never Give a Sucker an Even Break, he insisted that his thermos, labeled orange juice, be filled with gin, a joke that perfectly summed up his attitude toward sobriety. Fields' alcoholism ultimately took a toll on his health, leading to a decline in his once illustrious career. Yet, his legacy as one of the greatest comedians of his era endures, even if much of it was fueled by alcohol. Peter O'Toole is another name forever intertwined with alcohol and Hollywood legend. O'Toole's breakout role as T.E. Lawrence in Lawrence of Arabia catapulted him to international stardom, but it also marked the beginning of a life defined by reckless drinking. O'Toole didn't merely drink, he turned it into an art form. He would recount stories of epic binges that lasted for days, full of misadventures that would leave most people speechless. On one occasion, O'Toole and his drinking buddy Richard Harris reportedly consumed enough booze to render an entire bar dry. O'Toole's exploits were so infamous that bars in London and Los Angeles would post signs saying, "Peter O'Toole not welcome here." He often joked about his drinking, claiming that he had survived 2 failed livers and a broken ankle, all thanks to whiskey. While his love affair with alcohol was humorous to some, it undoubtedly hindered his career. There were times when he showed up to set completely incapacitated, needing hours to sober up before he could deliver a scene. However, even in the depths of his drinking, O'Toole's talent was undeniable. He earned 8 Academy Award nominations, a testament to his brilliance despite his personal struggles. Later in life, O'Toole did try to quit drinking, but the damage to his body was irreversible, leaving him as one of Hollywood's most memorable and tragic inebriates. While most stars drank as an escape, John Belushi's story stands as a sobering reminder of the destructive consequences of excess. Belushi was a comedic powerhouse, a force of nature who captivated audiences with his energy, spontaneity, and humor. His rise to fame with Saturday Night Live and films like Animal House made him a beloved figure in entertainment. However, behind his wild on-screen persona lay a man struggling with addiction. Alcohol was just one part of Belushi's problem, but it played a central role in his downward spiral. Friends and colleagues recalled that Belushi rarely appeared sober, even during rehearsals or live performances. He was known for his epic nights of drinking, often leading to mornings spent in a stupor. Despite interventions from friends and family, Belushi refused to slow down. His belief that his talent could carry him through any obstacle, no matter how impaired he was, proved tragically false. In 1982, Belushi was found dead of a drug and alcohol overdose at the Chateau Marmont Hotel in Los Angeles. His death shocked Hollywood and served as a stark warning about the perils of fame, indulgence, and unchecked addiction. To this day, Belushi remains a symbol of brilliance extinguished too soon. Errol Flynn, the original swashbuckler and matinee idol of Hollywood's golden age, lived life with the same reckless abandon he brought to roles like Robin Hood and Captain Blood. Flynn was the epitome of charm, wit, and rugged good looks, captivating audiences and critics alike. Yet, behind the scenes, his excessive drinking earned him as much notoriety as his daring on-screen personas. Flynn often began drinking from morning till night, pouring himself large quantities of whiskey, rum, and vodka. Co-stars and crew members frequently recounted how he would show up to set visibly intoxicated, yet somehow still able to deliver his lines flawlessly. Flynn's drinking was part of his devil-may-care reputation, but it took a toll on his health, his relationships, and his finances. The actor famously declared, "I like my whiskey old and my women young," a line that summed up his hedonistic lifestyle. Despite his alcoholism, Flynn remained a magnet for audiences, but his heavy drinking ultimately ravaged his body. By the time he died at just 50 years old, his liver was reportedly so damaged it resembled that of a man decades older. Flynn's story is one of raw charisma, self-destruction, and the price of living too fast for too long. Next on the list is Mickey Rourke, a Hollywood bad boy whose battle with alcohol became as legendary as his performances. Rourke's early career was marked by promise and raw talent. He electrified audiences in films like 9½ Weeks and The Pope of Greenwich Village, delivering performances that earned him comparisons to Marlon Brando. But Rourke's rise to fame coincided with a turbulent personal life filled with anger, violence, and a toxic relationship with alcohol. His drinking spiraled out of control during the 1980s, and Rourke often appeared unrecognizable on film sets, hungover or still inebriated from the night before. Friends and directors noted his unpredictability. Rourke would alternate between brilliance and complete disarray. At the height of his decline, he left acting entirely and turned to professional boxing, a career move many attributed to his need for redemption and physical punishment. When he eventually returned to Hollywood, his years of drinking and self-abuse had left visible marks, both physically and emotionally. Rourke's comeback role in The Wrestler earned him critical acclaim, but his struggles with alcohol remain an inseparable part of his legacy, a tale of raw talent almost extinguished by addiction. Few actors embodied the tragic allure of alcohol more than Vivien Leigh, the brilliant actress immortalized for her role as Scarlett O'Hara in Gone with the Wind. Leigh was celebrated for her beauty, sophistication, and ability to command the screen, but behind the scenes her life was marred by personal struggles and a turbulent relationship with alcohol. Leigh suffered from bipolar disorder, an illness that was poorly understood during her lifetime, and she often turned to alcohol as a means of self-medication. Her drinking intensified during her later years, exacerbating her erratic behavior and alienating those closest to her. Leigh's struggles were well known on set. She would sometimes arrive drunk or need long breaks to recover from her binges. Despite this, her undeniable talent allowed her to deliver performances of breathtaking intensity. Her role in A Streetcar Named Desire remains a haunting reflection of her personal struggles as she channeled her own pain into the role of Blanche DuBois. Leigh's dependence on alcohol ultimately took a devastating toll on her health, contributing to her untimely death at just 53 years old. Her story is a heartbreaking example of how Hollywood's brightest stars can be consumed by their demons even as they shine on screen. Lee Marvin, one of Hollywood's great tough guys, was a another star whose off-screen life was fueled by alcohol. Known for his gravelly voice, commanding presence, and roles in films like The Dirty Dozen and Cat Ballou, Marvin exuded rugged masculinity and no-nonsense charisma. However, much of his persona was shaped by his love of hard drinking. Marvin was a notorious drinker throughout his career, often seen with a bottle of bourbon or whiskey in hand. On set, directors and co-stars had to contend with his unpredictable moods and the effects of his heavy drinking. Marvin embraced the reputation of a hard-living man, unapologetically leaning into the myths that surrounded his persona. He would sometimes show up to interviews or events visibly drunk, slurring his words and cracking inappropriate jokes. Yet, in spite of his inebriation, Marvin delivered some of the most iconic performances in cinematic history. His drinking never fully derailed his career, but it certainly left its mark on his personal life and health. By the time he reached his later years, Marvin's lifestyle had caught up with him, leading to health complications that eventually claimed his life. His story remains one of Hollywood's most enduring examples of how the tough guy image could mask deep struggles beneath the surface. Clara Bow, one of Hollywood's first it girls, was a silent film icon whose struggles with alcohol mirrored the pressures of her fame. Bow rose to stardom during the 1920s, captivating audiences with her magnetic charm, natural beauty, and free-spirited performances. She became a symbol of the jazz age, embodying the rebellious, carefree ethos of the time. However, the rapid ascent to fame took a heavy toll on her mental health. Bow's success came with relentless scrutiny, vicious gossip, and impossible expectations, and she quickly found herself overwhelmed by the demands of stardom. Alcohol became her escape, a way to numb the stress and loneliness that plagued her personal life. She was often seen drinking excessively at Hollywood parties, earning a reputation for her wild and unpredictable behavior. As the silent film era gave way to talkies, Bow's career began to wane, further exacerbating her reliance on alcohol. Her mental health deteriorated alongside her drinking, and she eventually withdrew from Hollywood altogether, retreating into isolation. Bow's story remains a tragic example of how the pressure of fame can drive even the brightest stars to self-destruction. William Holden, one of Hollywood's most distinguished leading men of the mid-20th century, was both a talented actor and a notorious drinker. Known for his roles in classics like Sunset Boulevard, The Bridge on the River Kwai, and Stalag 17, Holden embodied rugged charm and stoic masculinity on screen. Off-screen, however, his life was marked by a dangerous relationship with alcohol. Holden's drinking was no secret to his colleagues or friends. He would often arrive on set hungover, his eyes bloodshot and his demeanor irritable. While his professionalism allowed him to mask the effects of his drinking to some extent, it became a growing problem as his career progressed. Directors and producers grew increasingly concerned about his reliability, though Holden continued to land iconic roles. Tragically, his drinking contributed to his untimely death in 1981. Holden fell in his home, hitting his head on a table while intoxicated, and bled to death alone. A shocking and sobering end for one of Hollywood's golden boys. Despite his struggles, Holden's acting remains celebrated, though his legacy is tinged with the consequences of his addiction. Another Hollywood legend consumed by alcohol was Tallulah Bankhead, an actress whose talent was matched only by her penchant for wild living. Bankhead was a star of both stage and screen, known for her sharp wit, sultry voice, and fearless performances in films like Lifeboat and on Broadway in The Little Foxes. While she was celebrated for her magnetic presence, her off-screen antics often overshadowed her career. Bankhead was a notorious drinker who seemed to revel in her reputation as a hard-partying, rebellious figure. Her social life was the stuff of Hollywood legend. Late nights filled with alcohol, wild parties, and scandalous behavior that kept the tabloids in a frenzy. Bankhead herself was unapologetic about her drinking, once quipping, "I'm as pure as the driven slush." Her drinking took a toll on her health and her ability to perform, but it also became part of the legend she carefully curated. Bankhead's larger-than-life persona and unapologetic embrace of alcohol cemented her as one of Hollywood's most unforgettable figures. A woman who refused to be tamed, even if it cost her dearly. Orson Welles, the genius behind Citizen Kane and one of cinema's most innovative minds, was another star whose drinking habits shaped his life and career. Welles was a visionary filmmaker, actor, and writer whose talents revolutionized Hollywood, but he also struggled with a love of alcohol that became increasingly visible as he aged. Welles's drinking began as a way to unwind after grueling workdays, but it quickly became a constant presence in his life. He was known for consuming vast amounts of wine and brandy, often using alcohol as a creative fuel while writing or directing. However, the drinking took its toll over time, contributing to weight gain, health problems, and erratic behavior that made him difficult to work with. Welles often appeared on television and in interviews slurring his words or delivering monologues that left audiences wondering how much he had consumed beforehand. Despite his immense talent, his drinking prevented him from reaching the heights his genius might have otherwise achieved. Welles remains a towering figure in Hollywood history, but his story is also a reminder of how even the most brilliant minds can be dulled by addiction. Barbara Payton was another star whose life was defined by both great promise and devastating self-destruction. Payton was a stunning actress who rose to prominence in the 1950s, capturing attention for her beauty and performances in films like Kiss Tomorrow Goodbye. However, her career was short-lived, and alcohol played a central role in her downward spiral. Payton's struggles began when the pressures of Hollywood and her tumultuous personal relationships drove her to heavy drinking. She quickly developed a reputation for showing up on set intoxicated, slurring her lines, and alienating co-stars and directors. As her drinking worsened, Payton's career fell apart. She went from starring in major films to living in poverty, her once promising career reduced to a cautionary tale. By the end of her life, Payton was homeless, drinking cheap liquor, and barely recognizable as the glamorous actress she once was. She died at the age of 39, her life cut tragically short by years of alcohol abuse and neglect. Payton's story remains one of Hollywood's darkest and most heartbreaking examples of how fame can destroy as easily as it creates. Spencer Tracy, one of the most celebrated actors of Hollywood's golden age, struggled with a lifelong battle against alcohol. Tracy was a consummate professional on screen, known for his powerful performances in films like Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, Inherit the Wind, and Boys Town. Inherit the Wind and Boys Town. He was revered for his naturalistic acting style and ability to convey profound emotion with subtlety. Off-screen, however, Tracy's life was dominated by his drinking. His alcoholism was an open secret in Hollywood, and directors often had to plan shoots around his benders. Tracy's drinking was exacerbated by his personal struggles, including his guilt over his son's deafness and his complicated relationship with longtime partner Katharine Hepburn. Friends and co-stars often had to step in to help him manage his addiction, but Tracy's charm and undeniable talent allowed him to maintain his career despite his struggles. Hepburn, in particular, remained by his side during his darkest moments, once remarking that he drank because he couldn't stop himself. Though Tracy eventually sought help in his later years, the damage to his health was done. He died in 1967, leaving behind a legacy as one of the finest actors of his generation, though his battle with alcohol remains an inseparable part of his story. Buster Keaton, one of the silent film era's greatest comedic geniuses, lived a life riddled with personal struggles that fueled his dependence on alcohol. Keaton's stoic on-screen persona, characterized by his deadpan expression and jaw-dropping physical comedy, masked a troubled personal life. As his career soared in the 1920s, Keaton faced enormous pressures to create groundbreaking films while dealing with the collapse of his first marriage. This emotional turmoil pushed him toward alcohol, and soon his drinking became excessive. By the time sound films replaced silent movies, Keaton's alcoholism had worsened. He would frequently show up to sets drunk or disappear on multi-day binges, making him increasingly unreliable to studios. Once earning millions and hailed as a genius, he found himself relegated to smaller roles in obscurity. Despite this decline, Keaton later achieved sobriety, thanks in part to the love and support of his third wife, Eleanor. Though his legacy as a comedic pioneer remains untouchable, Keaton's struggle with alcohol remains a haunting element of his story, a reminder of the personal cost behind his groundbreaking work. Dorothy Dandridge, the first African-American actress nominated for a Best Actress Academy Award, was an undeniable talent whose life was shaped by heartbreak and addiction. Dandridge's stunning beauty and captivating performances in films like Carmen Jones made her a trailblazer in Hollywood. However, her journey was fraught with challenges. Constant battles with racial discrimination, career frustrations, and financial difficulties weighed heavily on her, and she began relying on alcohol to cope with her struggles. Dandridge would often drink to excess, her nights consumed by sorrow and loneliness. Friends recalled her oscillating between moments of charm and wit to spirals of melancholy fueled by alcohol. As her career faded in the 1960s, so too did her health and well-being. Dandridge's drinking grew more severe, contributing to her untimely death at the age of 42 from a drug overdose exacerbated by years of alcoholism. Despite the tragedy of her life, Dandridge remains an iconic figure, a symbol of groundbreaking achievement marred by the dark toll of addiction. Ray Milland, a Hollywood leading man and Oscar winner, had a public and private relationship with alcohol that reflected both triumph and turmoil. Milland is best remembered for his searing performance as an alcoholic writer in The Lost Weekend, a film that earned him an Academy Award and became a groundbreaking portrayal of alcoholism on screen. What many didn't know at the time was how much Milland drew from his personal experiences to deliver that performance. Milland had battled with his own drinking habits throughout his life, often consuming heavily during Hollywood parties and periods of personal frustration. His role in The Lost Weekend served as a mirror to his own struggles, and it's said that the film became a turning point for Milland. Though he was able to control his drinking more effectively in later years, his reputation as a Hollywood drinker remained part of his legacy. Milland's story is a fascinating exploration of art imitating life, a man whose career-defining performance hit uncomfortably close to home. Veronica Lake, the glamorous star of 1940s noir classics such as The Blue Dahlia and Sullivan's Travels, was another Hollywood starlet undone by alcohol. Lake was known for her peekaboo hairstyle and smoldering screen presence, which made her one of the most recognizable actresses of her era. However, Lake's life behind the camera was far less glamorous. The pressures of fame, a series of failed marriages, and financial instability led her to alcohol as a way to cope. Co-stars and friends recalled how Lake's drinking grew more severe as her career declined. By the 1950s, her alcohol abuse had made her difficult to work with, and her once thriving career all but disappeared. She spent her later years struggling with poverty and illness, often working odd jobs to survive. In a tragic turn, Lake died at the age of 50 from complications caused by hepatitis, a condition brought on by years of heavy drinking. Her story remains one of unfulfilled promise and the harsh realities of Hollywood's unforgiving nature. Robert Shaw, the brilliant British actor known for his commanding performances in films like Jaws, The Sting, and A Man for All Seasons, was another star who battled alcohol throughout his career. Shaw was a magnetic presence on screen, his intensity and gravitas captivating audiences. However, his off-screen life was marked by heavy drinking, a habit he developed early in his career. Shaw was known for showing up to sets hungover or still drunk, though his professionalism often allowed him to deliver his performances despite his condition. During the filming of Jaws, Shaw's drinking became particularly infamous. Co-stars and crew members recalled how his alcohol-fueled behavior caused tension on set, though it also fueled some of the film's most memorable moments, including the iconic monologue about the sinking of the USS Indianapolis, a scene Shaw reportedly performed while intoxicated. Shaw's drinking ultimately took a toll on his health, and he died suddenly of a heart attack at just 51 years old. His immense talent and unforgettable performances are celebrated to this day, but his struggles with alcohol cast a shadow over his life and career. Richard Harris was one of the most captivating and unruly actors of his generation. Known for his iconic roles in Camelot, A Man Called Horse, and later Harry Potter, Harris's acting brilliance was often matched by his wild, booze-soaked off-screen behavior. He embraced the Hellraiser persona with pride, spending years indulging in marathon drinking sessions that became the stuff of legend. Harris himself once described how he would go on benders lasting weeks, surviving on whiskey and raw eggs. Directors and co-stars grew accustomed to his drunken antics as he often arrived on set bleary-eyed and unpredictable, but somehow managed to deliver extraordinary performances. Harris was also close friends with fellow drinking legends like Peter O'Toole and Oliver Reed, and their collective escapades would become Hollywood folklore. Harris eventually gave up drinking later in life after health scares, admitting the damage it had caused. Despite this, he remained unapologetic about his wilder years, leaving behind a legacy of both cinematic brilliance and untamed excess. Joan Crawford, a name synonymous with Golden Age Hollywood glamour, was another star whose life was deeply impacted by alcohol. Crawford's on-screen performances in films like Mildred Pierce and Whatever Happened to Baby Jane cemented her place as one of Hollywood's greatest actresses. Off-screen, however, she grappled with personal struggles that led her to alcohol. Known for her perfectionism and strong-willed personality, Crawford reportedly relied on alcohol to manage the pressures of her career and personal life. Colleagues often noted her mood swings and erratic behavior, fueled by heavy drinking behind closed doors. Her drinking worsened in later years as her career began to decline, leading to strained relationships with her family and friends. Crawford's struggles were later immortalized in the infamous memoir Mommy Dearest, written by her daughter Christina, which depicted her as an abusive alcoholic. Though some have questioned the accuracy of the memoir, it remains a chilling element of Crawford's complex legacy. Her story reflects both her immense achievements and the darker, destructive forces that accompanied her rise to stardom. John Barrymore, often referred to as the Great Profile, was a member of the legendary Barrymore acting dynasty and a true Hollywood icon. Known for his magnetic stage and screen performances in classics like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and Grand Hotel, Barrymore was considered one of the finest actors of his generation. However, his relationship with alcohol became a defining and ultimately destructive aspect of his life. Barrymore's drinking was infamous even during his peak, with friends and colleagues recounting his habit of downing copious amounts of liquor throughout the day. He would often arrive on set drunk, relying on his natural talent and sharp wit to mask his intoxication. As his alcoholism worsened, Barrymore's once stellar career began to crumble. He struggled to remember lines, slurred his speech, and was frequently unreliable, leading studios to turn their backs on him. By the time of his death in 1942, Barrymore's body had been ravaged by years of drinking. Despite his tragic decline, he remains a revered figure, remembered for both his extraordinary talent and the alcohol-fueled downfall that cut his career short. Dennis Hopper, the actor and director famous for Easy Rider and Apocalypse Now, embodied the rebellious counterculture spirit of Hollywood's 1960s and 1970s. Hopper's creativity and raw energy made him a cult icon, but his life off-screen was marked by an uncontrollable appetite for drugs and alcohol. Hopper's drinking was legendary, contributing to erratic behavior that alienated directors and co-stars alike. During the filming of Apocalypse Now, Hopper's alcoholism and drug use spiraled to such extremes that director Francis Ford Coppola struggled to get coherent performances from him. His unpredictable, often destructive behavior was just as memorable as his roles, leading to multiple professional and personal breakdowns. Hopper himself admitted that his addiction nearly cost him his life and career, but he eventually found redemption in the 1980s after achieving sobriety. Despite his struggles, Hopper's legacy as a Hollywood maverick remains intact, with his iconic performances standing alongside the cautionary tale of his years lost to addiction. Patricia Neal, the Academy Award-winning actress celebrated for her roles in HUD and The Day the Earth Stood Still, also struggled with alcohol throughout much of her life. Neal's career was marked by triumph and tragedy in equal measure. She survived a series of debilitating strokes in the mid-1960s, which forced her to relearn how to walk, speak, and act. However, Neal's battles with alcohol began long before her health struggles. Friends and colleagues described how Neal would often turn to drink during periods of emotional distress, including the breakdown of her marriage to writer Roald Dahl and the loss of their young daughter. Though Neal's drinking was less publicized than other stars, it remained a significant presence in her life, contributing to her periods of professional and personal instability. Despite this, Neal's resilience and extraordinary talent allowed her to make an inspiring comeback, earning acclaim for her later work. Her story is a testament to both the destructive power of alcohol and the strength of the human spirit to overcome adversity. Spencer Tracy may have been a revered leading man in Hollywood's golden age, but his alcohol addiction was legendary. A deeply private and sensitive man, Tracy used drinking to manage his personal turmoil, including his religious guilt and feelings of inadequacy. Tracy's career was filled with masterful performances in films such as Judgment at Nuremberg, Boys Town, and Inherit the Wind, yet behind the scenes, he was often inebriated. Studios covered up many of his drinking episodes to protect his reputation. Katharine Hepburn, his longtime partner and confidant, spent much of her life helping him manage his addiction, often hiding bottles or sobering him up enough to appear on set. Despite his struggles, Tracy could pull himself together long enough to deliver performances of depth and subtlety, earning him legendary status. However, his drinking destroyed his health, contributing to his early death at the age of 67. Tracy's life remains a somber tale of a man burdened by personal demons, seeking escape in alcohol even as he achieves cinematic greatness. Ava Gardner, one of the most beautiful and talented actresses of her time, also led a life shadowed by alcohol. Gardner became a star with films like The Killers and Mogambo, captivating audiences with her sensual charm and acting ability. However, her personal life was far less glamorous. Gardner's tumultuous relationships, including her highly publicized marriage to Frank Sinatra, added to her struggles, and alcohol became a constant companion. She was known to drink excessively both at Hollywood parties and in private, often showing up on set visibly hungover. Colleagues spoke of her magnetic presence on screen, but also noted how her drinking led to emotional volatility and frequent clashes with directors. Gardner was unapologetic about her lifestyle, embracing her reputation as a hard-living, independent woman. However, her drinking contributed to her declining health and finances in her later years. Despite the struggles, Ava Gardner remains an enduring Hollywood icon, remembered for her raw talent. Humphrey Bogart, one of the greatest actors in film history, was another star whose affinity for alcohol became a defining part of his persona. Bogart's tough guy roles in classics like Casablanca and The Maltese Falcon earned him legendary status, but his love of alcohol was just as famous as his career. Bogart drank constantly, favoring scotch and martinis, and often turned to booze during breaks on film sets. Friends and co-stars noted his ability to hold his liquor and still deliver flawless performances, an aspect of his professionalism that baffled many. However, Bogart's heavy drinking took a toll on his health, contributing to the esophageal cancer that eventually claimed his life at the age of 57. His love for alcohol was inseparable from his image, the chain-smoking, hard-drinking anti-hero who epitomized 1940s Hollywood cool. Even in death, Bogart's legacy endures as a symbol of old Hollywood, a star whose on-screen brilliance often masked the toll of his off-screen vices. Elizabeth Taylor, one of Hollywood's most celebrated actresses, was known not just for her stunning beauty and iconic performances, but also for her battles with alcohol. Taylor's life was filled with public scrutiny, failed marriages, and health issues, and she often turned to alcohol as a form of solace. Her drinking escalated during the 1960s, particularly during her volatile marriage to fellow actor Richard Burton, with whom she shared a notorious love for alcohol. Friends and colleagues recalled how the couple would drink for days on end, often arriving at sets drunk or hungover. Taylor's struggles with alcohol led to erratic behavior and damaged relationships, but her talent remained undeniable. Films like Cleopatra and Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf showcased her brilliance even during some of her darkest periods. Later in life, Taylor sought treatment and spoke openly about her addiction, becoming an advocate for recovery and addiction awareness. Her story reflects both the price of fame and the resilience of a woman determined to take back control of her life. Ernest Borgnine, the character actor best known for his performances in Marty, The Wild Bunch, and Escape from New York, was another star whose drinking habits became a constant fixture of his life. Borgnine's boisterous personality and hearty laugh made him a beloved presence on screen and off, but behind his jovial exterior, alcohol was a constant presence. Borgnine was known for his hard-drinking ways during Hollywood's golden years, often spending late nights at bars and wild parties. Co-stars noted his ability to drink excessively without ever fully losing control, a testament to his larger-than-life persona. While Borgnine's drinking never completely derailed his career, his professionalism and affability kept him in steady demand. It did contribute to a pattern of failed marriages and personal struggles. Borgnine's story, however, remains one of endurance. He lived a long life working well into his 90s, but his years of heavy drinking remain an indelible part of his Hollywood journey. If you liked this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, leave your comments below and tell us, what are your thoughts on celebrities being constantly drunk? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching and see you next time.